All right, here we go, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the Everyday Investor Podcast. I'm thankful that you're able to join me today. I do hope that you'll find this one interesting. Since 2017, I've been banging on the Bitcoin drum, if you like, for a while on the podcast. If you've been listening for a while, you know that probably about 25% of the time, that's kind of what I talk about. And it has been a little bit of a lonely crusade, I must confess, knowing that a lot of people, they were listening, they were interested, but not fully really convinced yet. And that's fine. It takes time. This year, things started to change though. The Bitcoin spot ETF approval from the start of this year, where you can effectively buy Bitcoin through an exchange-traded fund and on your brokerage app, no problem. And the pro-crypto stance adopted by U.S. politicians. Well, I didn't see that coming. That's pretty cool. And now we have rumors of nation-states adopting or maybe adopting Bitcoin as their strategic reserves. And that is just like mind-blowing to know that we have gone from kind of don't want to know about it to now everybody is starting to talk about it. And a lot of the voices in traditional finance that were very critical of Bitcoin are at the very least not being critical about it. And I think they're actually starting to become kind of open to it as well, which is really cool. Now, when you invest in a business, you're essentially buying a machine that prints money. You're buying something that makes money. It turns something into cash flow. It generates cash flow. And it's like stepping into the shoes of a bank, because a bank can do that as well. They can create money out of nothing when they lend money. Now, with Bitcoin, a digital asset with inherent scarcity, we as people have the chance to become our own bank. So right in your own wallet, completely under your control, is the opportunity to be your own bank. The only question is, are you ready to take it? So 3 things to think about if the answer is yes, and if you haven't made a start yet. Number 1, ignore the price. It doesn't matter what it is denominated in, US dollars, New Zealand dollars, Australian dollars, doesn't matter. That stuff's printed out of thin air. It doesn't really matter. With Bitcoin, it's completely different. Apples and oranges. Bitcoin cannot be increased in supply. It is finite. It's digital scarcity. And the fact that the price rises is actually just due to the rate of adoption. And we're still very, very early. But the other reason that it rises is because the value of our dollars are in decline. So consume as much content as you can to learn about Bitcoin. The more of it, the better, because you need to do your own research. The more you learn, the more you realize price does not matter. Number 2, dollar cost average. It's hard when Bitcoin has been positioned as a high-risk speculative investment. You're kind of trained by default when that's what you're told, that it's a gambling thing, basically. Invest an amount that you can afford to lose, all that sort of nonsense. In my view, this isn't something for speculation. Bitcoin is a savings technology. It's so much more important than just something that you want to play around with. One of the best decisions that I made early on with Bitcoin, and it wasn't easy, I think it was just that someone explained it to me really well, was just to ignore the price and set up an automatic payment to buy a little bit each week. And that's exactly what I did. Now, there's a link in the notes to sign up to Easy Crypto. That's who I use to acquire my allocation of Bitcoin. So set up your account, set up a wallet, and auto buy for the long term. Number 3, own Bitcoin in your own wallet. Yes, you can own it through other investment vehicles now, and for tax purposes, this can actually be something to consider. But one of the best aspects of owning any type of crypto, especially Bitcoin, is that you can be your own bank. Now, if you're not yet into Bitcoin and you're aware that the price is now at all-time highs, do not panic. You are still very, very early. Education, though, is really important around the basics of setting up your wallet, watching out for scams, and making sure that you have some sort of game plan. You're not just playing with the tools, you're actually using it to build something according to a strategy. So take advantage of Crypto 101, Crypto with Confidence, the free online course, and you will learn all the basics that you need to get started. Check it out. Link is in the notes. Now, today, I'm talking with Sarn, Elliot. He's a crypto consultant, and he's a YouTuber known as Crypto Kiwi. Really well-known guy here in New Zealand. Extremely knowledgeable in terms of all things crypto. So we're going to have a good chat today around being your own bank. Hope you enjoy. Let's get started. You are listening in to the Everyday Investor Podcast, and I'm Darcy Ungaro.
business, shares, crypto, property, precious metals, and managed funds. It's not about the tools though, it's about the dream and how much risk you're willing to take along the way. I'm aiming for a healthy margin above an average result for myself, my family, and the people I work with. If you're an everyday person, then please join me. The Everyday Investor Podcast thanks past, present, and future partners of the show. Special mention to Ungaro & Co. for financial advice, Gorilla Technologies for strategic IT solutions, and Icehouse Ventures for investment into Kiwi tech startups. Check out the show notes, subscribe to the fortnightly newsletter, say hello on the socials, and leave a 5-star review. But most importantly, remember, this isn't advice. If you need that, reach out to me or contact your current financial advisor for input. Thanks for joining me on this one. Let's make a start.
How are you, Sarn?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from, where you're at, where you're going?
Grew up in New Zealand, a small town, but I got into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency back in 2017, and have basically just dived in deeper over the last few years to the point where I'm now working full time in the industry, and a few different things on my own now, running my own little things. But yeah, very deep in the crypto industry now.
Yeah, we were remarking before how interesting it is now that you could effectively be anywhere in the world doing your work because you're getting paid in a form of currency which is worldwide, and you're doing a type of work which can be done worldwide. So it's a very different sort of way of working than a lot of people when they start out. But did you kind of always have this idea in your mind that you would find your future, forge your way in the crypto ecosystem, or is this something that you kind of fell into?
A little bit of both, I think. As I learned more, I obviously became quite passionate, and the idea of working in the industry was attractive, but getting to that stage of working in the industry was kind of a next step. And even speaking to some people too, I think I had a similar view that people have currently, is you don't really know where to start in the crypto industry because there's no university education. School doesn't prepare you for this kind of industry. So you do need a bit of your own personal experience, but then also be able to have normal experience and normal jobs as well, and clash the two together to get into the industry. But yeah, I didn't plan for it, but it kind of just fell into place and it's working out. So can't complain.
Hey, if it works. Before we actually start on this conversation, it would be good maybe if you could talk a little bit about being your own bank and what that actually means. Specifically, what is the difference between giving your assets over to somebody else to take care of it for you versus holding your assets directly?
Yeah, that's it's actually one of the key features about Bitcoin and crypto in general, which I think quite a few people miss because this was largely spoken about 10, 15 years ago when this emerged. But over time, we've had a lot more, or we've had new exciting things come about. So a lot of people forget this basic thing. But the whole idea of Bitcoin is it emerged shortly after 2008. We know that whoever created Bitcoin, a part of them creating it was the lack of trust with banks and everything that was going on at that time. And so a big part of Bitcoin and its creation was giving people the ability to own a digital asset that has value and not rely on any third party to actually own that. So just like how you have money in the bank, you can actually hold cash in your wallet and you don't have to ask anyone for permission to spend that money or have access to it. With Bitcoin too, the whole idea is that you can store it yourself, and there's no one else involved. You can do it completely privately or anonymous as well, so you don't have to tell anyone that you have it. It is being your own bank to a very basic level because you own value. You can send it, you can do whatever you want with it. It's under your own control and no one else has any access whatsoever unless you permit them access yourself.
So when it comes to different age groups, say the younger digitally native generation like yourself, I'm kind of in the middle, or say someone like my mom, like a boomer, they would probably have a lot of difficulty getting their heads around this concept of not giving assets to somebody else to take care of for them. But that's kind of the whole benefit with crypto and Bitcoin in particular, is that we can be our own bank. So do you find that it does take a little bit of a different approach when you're talking to people who aren't used to the idea of being their own bank?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if they're in an older generation, it's because that's what they're used to, especially when it comes to investments and assets. someone younger like myself, or even younger than me, they might not be at that stage of life where they've ever had to reach out to someone and figure out what to do with their money. Think of someone my age or younger, their only investments might be KiwiSaver, right? And you don't really have the option to manage that yourself. So yeah, for older people, it is straight, their mind goes straight to, I need to pass this on to someone else. They'll manage it for me. Perhaps they can trade or make passive income, dividends for me, but that's not really how it works. And like I said, the original idea of Bitcoin was that you can own some kind of digital value under your control that's separate from everything else. You don't have to rely on these third parties. And for some people, it's just grasping that concept and accepting it that can take a bit of a hurdle to get past.
And one of those hurdles is just the technical complexity. And then you have other things like just, this is what we've always done. And I guess it's important, right? Because if there are dangers in this space, and one of the pathways to some of that danger is trusting other people to manage your assets, your digital assets. And you might want to do that also because you're trying to get yield, you're trying to get some sort of return. And you might be tempted to use a service provider, formerly known as Celsius, or something similar, where there's a promise of some financial reward if you allow them to hold it on your behalf. But these are all, we know now, extremely dangerous practices to trust anybody with your digital assets when you have a choice. But let's just start just maybe with that first one, like the technical challenges. How do you explain to somebody the concept of downloading a wallet and holding their digital assets themselves?
Yeah. Sometimes I explain it a little bit like having a safe. Let's just say that you had jewelry or physical gold that you owned and you kept yourself instead of storing it somewhere else. So having a cryptocurrency wallet is your own digital wallet to store cryptocurrencies, unlike Bitcoin. And the fact that it is your wallet means that you're the only one that has access and control, and there's no one else involved whatsoever. Just going back to what you said there, some people are chasing yield, or they want that return because that's what they're used to, especially with investments. Bitcoin doesn't provide a yield or a return in terms of a dividend or a payout or anything like that, no cash flow, but we have seen it appreciate in the price a lot. So sometimes I compare it to gold just to help get that point across. Is if you owned a physical ounce of gold or block of gold, for example, and you stored it at home in your own safe, with PIN code everything privately, would you keep it in your safe at home where you had control, the PIN code to get access? Or would you be looking for someone on the street to take that off you and then try to earn some yield off it and then pay you slowly? Very similar concept, right? So with the way you look at Bitcoin is it needs to be something called value because it is. And just because it's digital doesn't mean that you should hand it off to someone else like we do with a lot of digital things. This is actually a piece of digital scarcity that has real life value. And so you should treat it like something that you do in real life and physical value, like gold, for example.
That is hard in and of itself, just understanding digital scarcity when we know that we can right click, copy, then paste infinitely. How the heck can we have digital scarcity? And by the way, forgive me, anyone who's listening or watching and they're just thinking, hey, this is really basic, but I know that at the moment we have a lot of new people coming into this space just because of the recent run up in the price of Bitcoin. And so today I kind of want to just talk a little bit about the basics, but also just the really, really important things that we should know really well. So yeah, digital scarcity. How do you explain that?
So that was really probably one of the biggest innovations that Bitcoin brought about was digital scarcity. People for decades, literally since the 90s, have been trying to figure out how to make some form of a currency that's digital and separate from governments. But that's always been the hardest thing, is how do you make something that people can't just copy or manipulate, especially if it's digital, right? So that's what Bitcoin has basically solved. It's a network, and the stronger the network is, the more difficult it is to affect or change. And Bitcoin is the strongest network in terms of crypto. And so it is completely scarce. There's only so many Bitcoin that can exist, and it's written in code. And this whole network around the world comes together and they all agree on the same thing. And so therefore it can't be changed. It is a bit of a hard concept to explain because it is very technical. But the main idea is it's pretty much the first time in history that we have something that's completely digital. Anyone can take part in it, but you can't make fake copies of it. You can't fake the system. You can't copy and paste Bitcoin and just have more of it. It is completely scarce, and you can't create it out of thin air. And that's partly why it continues to make headlines every couple of years. And that's why we still see Bitcoin today being the dominant cryptocurrency, because it does have these special features, and it was the first one to do so.
Yes. I think it's just really hard, though, for us humans to get our head around this, though, that you can actually get a bunch of smart people around a room to come up with an idea of, well, yeah, it's consensus. Everybody is agreeing that this thing has value, and it's created so that it can be completely robust in this digital ecosystem and reliable. And I guess the more you understand of it, the more faith that you have in it. You don't have to take somebody's word on the fact that it works. There's no blind faith required. It actually can stand up to the scrutiny. You can actually do a lot of deep dives into the world of Bitcoin and discover that, hey, this is actually very reliable. Like, based on what you know, Sarn, and the research that you've put in, which is going to be way more than I've done, have you found that your level of confidence in this asset has increased over time?
Yeah, it's insane. And I do question myself too, because I don't want to become an echo chamber. I know that some people, they become religious to their investments and they don't see any flaws. I do see a few concerns in Bitcoin long term, but short term, it's resilient and can't be changed. It's very strong. And back to that resilience thing, I think everyone's seen it in the news. You've seen the amount of articles calling Bitcoin terrible for the environment. It's a scam. It's dropped $50,000. It's dying. It's dead. Yet every couple of years, you'll see the news talking about it because it's breaking all new time highs. More people are adopting it. And just recently this year, we're seeing institutional adoption, right? We're actually seeing funds in the States and the government now taking it seriously, to the point where politicians are trying to appease to crypto holders. So yeah, in terms of resilience, it's very resilient, and it's been attacked many times. Many huge organizations and people have tried to push it down, but it keeps coming back. So yeah, my confidence is very strong. And like any kind of thing that you invest in, right? If you don't know anything about it, you're basically gambling, is how I see it. Whereas if there is that knowledge, at least you understand what it is and how it works. And it's not a gamble, it's then an investment.
Yes. Okay. How would you kind of go through this with someone for the first time when they're setting up their wallet specifically? And I'm just thinking about, say, for example, someone like a boomer, right? Like someone of my mom's age, right? She's in her 70s. How would you help someone like that practically go through and set up their own wallet?
Yeah, so you've got different types of wallets. It's all the same thing, but just slightly different forms. So a software wallet's usually the easiest and the best place to start. It's just an application or a program you download, and it will take you through step by step on how to set it up. And with a wallet, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's only a few things that you need to do. You download the program, and you create a new wallet. And through that process, it will get you to write down 12 or 24 words. And those 12 or 24 words are a seed phrase. And so that's basically a master key to the wallet. It'd be like if you went out and bought a safe. I don't know if you had a safe, or maybe a lot of people have, right? With the safe, you set up a PIN code, but quite often safes have almost an emergency master key in case the batteries die or you get the PIN code wrong, you can't get in. So with a crypto or Bitcoin wallet, those 12 or 24 words are your master key. And as long as you keep those to yourself, you don't tell anyone, you don't store it online, you don't take photos of it, you basically are your own bank. And that's the unlock key to do whatever you want with it. Crypto wallets aren't as complicated as people might think they are. I know me saying 12, 24 words, it starts to sound confusing. It's just a phrase, and all that is a password.
Yes. So if you were just starting out, what would you recommend people do? Would they just go with the easiest user experience, or start off how you want to finish in terms of getting like the best, most secure wallet arrangement?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you are just learning, you can always start with just a software wallet because there's no cost involved. And then you set up the words and you go through the process of understanding how things work. But then the right way to really do things is get a hardware wallet, which is a physical device like this, very small. But the two differences between a software and a hardware wallet is the software wallet, it stores everything on your computer or your device, right? Even the the private key, which is the thing that allows you to send or move your Bitcoin. It's kind of your master key. Whereas with these, that special key is stored on the device, not on your computer. So that means even if your computer gets hacked or compromised or anything like that, it's actually stored on this tiny device here that doesn't really reveal it to anyone, not even your computer. So these are more secure. They do cost anywhere between about $120 to $300. But, for the ultimate security and to be able to actually store your digital value the right way, this is the way to go. But like I said, Darcy, they work in similar ways. So if you set up a software wallet, the application, the program, when you go through and set it up, it will give you 12 or 24 words to write down, and that's your master key. When you set up one of these, very similar process, it will give you 12 or 24 words, which is your master key. The only difference is all the information is stored on here rather than on your computer, the important information. And that's what makes it slightly more secure.
So you could unplug that thing, and you've just reduced the possibility that if someone possessed your machine or grabbed your cell phone or whatever, there's no way they could hack into it because all the important information is on that device, which is now not connected to the internet in any way.
Yeah, well, every wallet has it's called a private key, and it's basically think of a physical key, right? Let's just say I want to get into my house. I put the physical key in, turn it, and that opens the door. With a crypto wallet, to actually do a transaction, so send something out of it, you need that key, that digital key. A software wallet, which is the program, it stores a file on your computer, which is that key. Usually it's encrypted, so you can't just read it. It's encrypted, but it's still on your computer, so it's still there. And if someone can unencrypt it, they then have the key to your crypto. Whereas with these, the key is stored on a chip on these. And when I want to do a withdrawal or a transaction, my computer sends a message to this, and this says yes or no, and it sends the yes or no back to the computer. So at no point does the computer actually have the key. It's always stored on here. Yeah.
And so the seed phrase, the 12 or 24 word seed phrase, that's what you could then, let's say, for example, you lost that device or you lost your phone with your software wallet installed on it, but you thankfully still have your written down seed phrase somewhere. What happens when that happens? Like you get a new device, you buy a new Trezor, for example, or a new Ledger hardware wallet, and then what? You just take those words, put them back in there, and everything's happy days again. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. That's a very simplified version of it. Those 12 or 24 words are basically a human readable version of that digital key. The digital key is a huge key or character. It's a string of code made up of characters. So very hard for us to remember or even type in if we need to, because it's horrible to read. Whereas the 12 or 24 words in a certain order, it makes up a phrase, which is an easier version for us to use. And so, yeah, let's just say that I did lose this, or I ran it over, who knows. I could buy another one of these devices, put in my 12 or 24 words into the new device, and it would open up my crypto wallet with all my crypto, and I'm back to normal. And because of that too, basically those 12 or 24 words become your master key. So if you memorize those 12 or 24 words, you might never have to write them down, and it's only inside your head that has the access to them. So if you have $1 million in Bitcoin in one of these wallets, and you have only got the 12 or 24 words in here, you effectively have $1 million worth of value in your memory that no one else can get access to.
So mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cool concept if you start to think of it in that way. It is a new way to store value.
Yeah, and even just from a security point of view, I guess, depending on how creative you are, you could come up with a poem or a story or a song even out of those words. Just don't write it down anywhere electronically and don't sing it out loud. But I guess you could kind of teach it to yourself and just say it over and over again until you felt confident you actually had mind you, then again, I'm just thinking of some horrible dystopian scenario where you get drugged to tell the truth one day in the future and you blurt out your seed phrase, right? So I guess there's trade-offs everywhere you go with this sort of
yeah. Oh, that's a thing too that I've heard someone say on a podcast before. If it ever got to that point where someone kidnaps me and wanted my seed phrase to take my Bitcoin, well, if it's only in my head, either I give it to them and they take it, or they do whatever they want to me, I never give it to them, and nobody wins at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's once again completely in my control to actually hand over access if I want. It's not something that can be physically forced or confiscated from me, unless I then choose to verbally explain it and pass it on.
Do you have to have the same brand or type of wallet to be able to restore from your seed phrases?
No, so it's a format basically. Some wallets you do, some you don't, but it's a universal format, so you don't need to.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good to know. So once your wallet is set up, you're going to go through your setup stages and you're going to copy down these seed phrases. What are just some of the things that people should be aware of when they're copying down these seed phrases? You've alluded to it before that there shouldn't be a digital copy of this. Maybe if you could just explain why that is so important in the present age, and then other ideas that you have in terms of best practices around keeping the seed phrases safe.
Yeah, I mean everything is digital these days, right? And people are very quick to do the easy way for things. So let's just say that you downloaded an application, a software wallet, a crypto software wallet. You got your 12 words in front of you. Some people straight away will take a screenshot and they'll save it to their computer because it's easier than writing it down. The thing is with that is, if you ever have malware on your computer or if someone goes on your computer and recognizes what this is, they can instantly get access to your crypto wallet. That is the master key. And we're seeing things like, wireless printers be hacked because when you print something wirelessly, it actually sends the information to the printer. And if that printer is connected to the internet, there's almost a backdoor for someone to get in and see what you're sending to your printer. So it's highly, it's recommended in cryptocurrency that you just write things down on physical paper and you keep it hidden. Don't keep it stored digitally. And even like I said, some people, they might take a quick photo of the 12 words and store it that way on their phone. But a lot of phones these days, like iPhones, they automatically back up every photo to iCloud. Or even, Android phones, they try to get you to back up to the Google version of iCloud. And all you need is a leak. Somehow iCloud gets hacked or a data breach. And if your photos are leaked, you only need someone to figure out what the 12 words mean, and then your crypto funds are in someone else's hands. So even though this is completely new and it's very technical and it's all digital, believe it or not, the best way to store your private key, your master key, is analog, digital, not digital, on paper, handwritten, very old-fashioned, or in your head.
Yeah, or take those old school Polaroid photographs where it's chemically crisp from your camera. I know I did that once as a backup of a backup, right? But there's other cool innovations like those cases where with the metal words in it that you can put it in, so it's quite durable. But yeah, like, that is really ultra important. And would you go so far as to say that periodically people might want to consider just going through a bit of a checklist where they're testing their seed phrases and maybe even moving their assets onto another wallet just to kind of move on and delete the old past phrases and set up a new one occasionally? Just, is that a good idea, or does that introduce more risk just in the process of change? Because every time you move it, you open up the possibility of a bit of an error, right? So what would you say to that?
I think if you've got your passphrase written down, and most wallets, when you write down the passphrase, once you hit next or continue, it will take you to the next step and it will actually test that you've written it down or you've got it right. So some wallets will get you to repeat all of the words. Some might only check, what's your second word, what's your 10th word, because a lot of people back in the day would just skip this, skip. And then eventually they do need that master key because they've made a mistake or their computer died, who knows, and they don't have it. So for myself, I think if you've tested your seed phrase and it works and you've got multiple copies and it's all hidden and everything, don't really need to test it so much. It's almost like a last resort. These words, they are the master key, but they only come into place when you really need them, where you've made a mistake, you can't get access, you've forgotten a PIN code or something like that. They're kind of the last resort.
Yes, got it. And I guess if you were starting out, you're not really going to want too much complexity, but having more than one wallet and diversifying it across more than one pot, that's an idea. But then also multi-sig or multi-signature solutions at a really high level, because I know that might not be appropriate for people just starting out, but at a really high level, can you just explain the concept of a multi-sig wallet?
Yeah, so a multi-sig wallet means multi-signature. And so when you want to do a transaction or send Bitcoin, for example, you need that key to basically unlock to send the transaction. That's basically called a signature. You're signing access, or you're signing permission to make the transaction happen. So a multi-signature wallet is basically multiple different keys that need to come together to make one transaction happen. So for example, let's say I set up a wallet and I wanted Darcy to be someone that owns one of the keys and he has to sign to make sure a transaction happens. If I want to send Bitcoin out of this wallet, I can't do it alone. I need Darcy with his 12 or 24 words and his access to also approve that to make it happen. It's a cool feature, but for most people, it's probably not something they would use. Just think of it as taking a key, you split it up into maybe three separate keys, and you need to bring all of them together to make the one key to actually work. Yeah.
Superpowers unite, right? It's the ultimate comic book theme coming into play. All right, so Sarn, it sounds pretty complicated when we go through all of the complexities of seed phrases and backups and all that sort of stuff, but we're highlighting some of the technical details here, knowing that it is actually fairly simple once you get it set up. How often do you fiddle around with all those past phrases and stuff like that?
Actually, I haven't needed to at all. I mean, only once when I've moved to a new computer and, just loading everything up. But when I work with clients, sometimes that happens where they've lost access or they've made a mistake, and so that I have to help them with that.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not that hard. Like I said, it's just 12 or 24 words, and that little bit of work of writing these down and keeping them safe or understanding how it works, that's the only cost of being your own bank and owning your own digital value that no one else can touch or control. That's all it takes just to be your own bank in crypto.
Yeah, which is pretty significant when you think about, well, what would it look like if you were actually a proper bank? Or at the very least, what would it look like if you even just had a whole bunch of gold coins and we go back in time? Well, you still have to keep that really safe, and you have to kind of be almost paranoid not to let anyone near that safe or know what you have. And there's always a risk that you have a honeypot situation where someone could break in and steal it. So it isn't a new concept. It's just a slightly different version of it. And it is actually still pretty easy. Like, I think the way that my wife and I have our own security set up with Bitcoin in particular is like there's layers and layers of redundancy and security so that you can kind of be probably more confident in this than you can with having a physical safe somewhere, in my view.
And each to their own, right? Like if you write down the 12 words, it's okay. So now where do we hide this? How do we make sure that somebody can't accidentally find this? And that's really all it is. It's even some of my clients, when they get a little bit worried, this sounds too much for me, I don't want to do this. I ask them to use Facebook and they say yes. And Facebook, you've got friend requests, messages, notifications, groups, marketplace, everything. It's a nightmare. And if you can navigate the Facebook app, you can definitely learn how to write down 12 words and keep them safe. Yeah.
That's a really good way of putting it. Okay, now we're going to do a quick demo here soon where I'm going to buy some equipment off of you because you're going overseas soon, and I'm going to give you some Bitcoin to buy some stuff, and we're going to do the deal right now, even though we're not in the same building. So tell us, though, before we do that, where are you at right now, and why are you thinking of heading overseas? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I'm still in New Zealand as of recording this, but everything I do work-wise is basically in the crypto industry, which is completely global. Crypto is not American. It's not New Zealand. It's everywhere. It's the cyberspace. So technically, my income is coming from the digital sphere overseas, really. And so there's not really anything keeping me in New Zealand. And a lot of my peers my age, they've all gone off, done OE. Some have actually moved overseas. They fall in love with certain countries. Maybe they meet people. So a big part of that is an experience, but also because this industry is global. There's not too much to stay in New Zealand for if you are completely crypto based.
It's pretty cool. It's really cool to see a legitimate use case for crypto, and I'm thinking specifically about the fact that you can kind of be anywhere, you could be doing anything, and you don't have to shut down bank accounts and set up new bank accounts and figure out how to move stuff from one jurisdiction to another if you wanted to. I'm not sure if this is what you're doing, but you could just memorize your seed phrases and effectively bring all of your wealth with you. I just think that's the best thing ever. But one of the coolest features that I think is pretty cool is that you can actually transmit value. Like if you can see somebody anywhere in the world through a screen, you can transmit value by using your camera app on your phone. And I've got my Bitcoin wallet open here, and I'm going to send you some Bitcoin to buy some LED lights because I need some new lights here. And we've already discussed how much I'm going to be paying you here. But do you want to just maybe share your screen, show me what your QR code is, and I'll fire some sats through to you.
Tell me when you can see this.
Cool, I can see it now.
Cool. So this is a software wallet, like I spoke about. It's just a program, and all I need to do is go receive because I want to receive Bitcoin, and then it pops up with this QR code here, which is just for this code, which is my wallet address. So if you're watching this and you've never used crypto, it's basically my bank account number you could compare it to for this wallet. So if Darcy sends any Bitcoin to this address here, this code, it will land on my side of my wallet, and then it's mine to use and do whatever I want with.
Yeah. So I'm just going to scan that right now. You're using an Exodus wallet, so am I.
Yes.
Not that it makes much of a difference, but I rate what you're doing. Look at that. It already appeared right away.
This is all in live time. This is no editing. This is just so as easy as that. That's
amazing. So I just paid 24,586,000 sats, not stats. And that'll probably be one of those stories in the future where it's like the Bitcoin pizza, right? I've got these LED lights now that are worth like you could buy a house with it. Who knows? So hopefully not from my perspective.
But the most expensive lights you've ever bought.
Yeah, probably will. I can see it happening. But that's cool. Like that's actually amazing when you think about it, because right now you're in New Zealand. We're having a Teams conference call right now. You could be anywhere in the world right now, and there was no bank involved in what we just did. There was no government involved with what we just did. Nobody could see and observe or act as a gatekeeper with that transaction of value. It was all occurring on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is just mind-blowing, I think.
There's no discrimination, so you could have sent me $1, but we've actually seen Bitcoin transactions over $1 billion happen as well. So if it's $1 or $1 billion, it's all the same. It doesn't matter.
Yes, that's amazing. So what I'd like to do as we come in for a close now is just have a little chat to you just with the future of Bitcoin. You alluded to before that, there are some concerns that you have in the back of your mind that are probably more long-term concerns. What are some of those concerns that you have or risks that you can see with Bitcoin long-term?
Yeah. So, I've researched Bitcoin a lot and I have a lot of confidence. I understand it very well. For me, one of the bigger concerns long-term is the scalability. How does Bitcoin grow to accept more and more people that want to use it? Right now, it's quite limited with how many people can use it as a payment network. Maybe it might not be a payment network, but to me, I think it needs to look at how it can scale. And this has been a very political thing in Bitcoin in the last 10 years because the way it works is if Bitcoin wants to change or innovate, everyone has to agree for it to happen. And of course, some people have different thoughts, other people have different thoughts. And because it's something that people are passionate about, right? It's freedom, it's money, it's digital value. They're very passionate about it, so it can get quite heated. I know that even some people that watch me talking about this now might not be too keen on it, but yeah, like I said to you, Darcy, I understand this very well, but I also always check myself. I always question myself so that I'm not deluding myself into a reality that's not true. Yeah.
That's good. If you did get to a point where you were like, I'm out. This is horrible. I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore.
Yeah.
What would that look like? What would it look like?
Yeah, that'd be scary. When I say scale, right, Bitcoin right now can handle about 7 transactions per second. That's how many transactions the network can handle. So Darcy's just sent me some Bitcoin. That's 1 transaction, right? So the network can handle about 7 per second. And it's fully market-based. So for Darcy to send me that Bitcoin, he had to pay a very small fee in Bitcoin, which is then paid to the network, the people that operate the network. But because it can only handle 7 transactions per second, let's just say millions of people want to send Bitcoin. the cost to do a transaction will start to climb. It's almost like Uber. When lots of people want to order an Uber, you pay a fortune. If no one's using Uber, you pay the lowest price. And for me, it starts to get concerning when that fee gets too high, especially when people in poorer countries might not be able to use Bitcoin because it's too expensive. And the whole idea of it is that it's freedom money. Anyone can use it. So that's where it starts to kind of concern me. Right now, we're okay. But and it's not to say that Bitcoin won't change and it can fix these problems. I would like to see it happen before it gets messy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like the problem that things like layer 2 solutions, like Lightning Network, is that the problem that they're trying to solve?
Yeah, correct. The idea of creating like a second network which can do a lot of the work for Bitcoin, and so that the main network doesn't get over congested. But yeah, with everything there's sacrifices to reach that level. So
Yeah.
who knows? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'll say. And so like that transaction that we just did before, we could have done that on the Lightning Network instead, right?
Yeah, and it would have cost a lot less. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of what I say is quite political too. It's, like I said, for me, it becomes a concern when people in poorer countries can't use it. And that's part of Bitcoin, right? The whole idea is it's freedom money. It's for anyone to use. And we're trying to fix the problem where the banks are in the middle. But if it gets to a point where it's only people in rich countries that can use it, for me personally, it's starting to cause an issue. So yeah, there's a lot of politics and ethics involved too.
It's a good dose of idealism though. Like I love it. I love the idealism that comes along in the Bitcoin camp because it's all centered around people. And as soon as we get further away from that, and even things like the Bitcoin exchange traded fund that was approved earlier this year, the Bitcoin spot ETF, that is awesome for up or go up, right? It's amazing just to see that new money come in and just the legitimacy that has created within this ecosystem, like that's amazing. But yeah, like if this really was born out of, in a sense, like this Occupy Wall Street movement or this rebellion against the status quo that was letting the people down, then I guess that is the risk, that it somehow gets captured by traditional finance and it's not as free as it used to be. I still kind of have faith. Maybe I'm being a little bit too idealistic myself, but I still kind of have faith that, hey, maybe those that do try to contain it will pay a price somehow, because it is autonomously, it exists and it can't be shut down. We've seen that. And so if you do try to manipulate it, well, you're probably going to pay a price.
Yeah. The people that have tried to attack Bitcoin or take it down, they end up losing. Yeah.
With what you do, crypto consulting, tell people, speak to the people that you can help and tell people how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. So a lot of what we do is help people get over that technical hurdle and help them get to the point where they're confident enough that they can do it on their own. Because the whole idea of crypto is that it's your own bank, like we've spoke about. And so we want to take away the lack of confidence or the feeling of having to rely on other people to manage the funds or look after it or help you. And we do so very professionally. We're very anonymous. And even like when we help a client set up their wallet, when they get to the stage of writing down those words, we leave the room. It's your wallet. We have no involvement whatsoever. So the same thing too. We're not there to give you financial advice. We're there to help you understand how it works and get you confident with managing it yourself. Yeah. Even like I just trying to think of it, let's just say that you had someone that had never used a bank account, never used a credit card. I wouldn't be the guy that tells you what to spend your money on, but I'd explain to you what the 16 digits on your credit card mean, how to use them, and how important it is that you keep those private and you don't just post it online or something like that. So yeah, a lot of us helping people get confident. We can help with different things, but we're not financial advisors and we can't tell you what to buy and when to buy.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I love that example of the credit card, because we're so used to the idea of a credit card, aren't we, that we probably don't need anyone to explain it to us. But when you think about it really carefully, it is pretty complex, right? Like there's a lot of moving parts. You have to apply for the credit limit, and sometimes you might not even get it. It has to be affiliated with a bank account. So if you can't get a bank account, well, you're not going to get a credit card. And then you actually have to custody those numbers, the bank account number with the expiry date and the code on it.
Well,
Right.
even going back to what we've talked about this episode, right? The whole 12, 24 words, private key thing. Your card, those 16 digits and the expiry date and the little 3-digit CVV, that's the same thing. That's you authorizing or giving permission for something to use it. So it's a very similar very similar kind of system when you think of it in that way. You don't post your credit card details online because if you do, your money's gone.
Yeah, that's right. And you just showed yours on the screen, so good one.
Just I was careful.
You didn't show both sides. That was good. No, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. Now, if people want to find out how to work with you and where to find you, where should they go, Sarn?
Crypto Consulting NZ. There's not really anyone else in the country doing this to the extent we are. And you'll see our faces, including mine, on the website when you arrive.
Yes. Are you getting busier now that we are at all-time highs with Bitcoin?
Yes, yeah. We go from maybe a few inquiries a week to 5 or 10 a day as soon as the market moves. So people are very emotionally driven into quickly getting started once they see it moving.
Yeah. Get in contact with Sarn if you need more like hand-holding or more direct help in your situation, or do the online course, which there'll be a link into the notes, completely free. Jump in there and you'll be super confident at the end of it. Awesome. Really appreciate that, Sarn, and all the best for your travels to Asia.
Thank you. I think the next year will be very exciting in crypto as well. So let's see what happens.
I think so. Good on you. All right. Cheers, Sarn. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me today on the Everyday Investor Podcast. Hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please share me around. For the odd giveaway, invite, and sneak peek, make sure that you've subscribed to the fortnightly newsletter. The link is in the show notes, as well as special referral codes from previous guests on the show. Remember, our show partners Ungaro & Co., Gorilla Technologies, and Icehouse Ventures. Lastly, a final reminder. Please remember this isn't financial advice. If you need that, reach out to me or your current financial advisor. Thanks again for joining me on this one, and we'll catch you next week.
Where kids find a thrill. Christmas morning, it's the world they rebuild. Just like Bitcoin cycles come around, every 4 years the price it does rebound. You're not late, don't speculate. Bewilderment to wonder, belief to anticipate. Hold your course, let the market be. Bitcoin's journey, it's just history. Since 17, I've been on this ride, preaching Bitcoin with the passion inside. The ETF news, the political sway, traditional finance now in the fray. You could be your own bank in your digital wallet, controlling your wealth. Now isn't that a profit? The price might go up, but here's what I state. It's not about the now, it's about the long wait. You're not late, don't speculate. Dollar cost average set and automate. Ignore the highs, understand the lows. In Bitcoin's world, patience grows. You're not late, don't speculate. Bewilderment to wonder, belief to wonder. Bewilderment to wonder, belief to wonder. Belief to wait. Since 17, I've been on this ride, preaching Bitcoin with the passion inside. The ETF news, the political sway, traditional finance now in the fray. You can be your own bank in your digital wallet, controlling your wealth. Now isn't that a profit? The price might go up, but here's what I state. It's not about the now, it's about the long wait. You're not late, don't speculate. Dollar cost average set and automate. Ignore the highs, understand the lows. In Bitcoin's world, patience grows. The dollar fades, Bitcoin ascends. A savings tech on which trust depends. With every halving, every peak, the value's in the tech, not just the peak. Hold it tight in your own control. This isn't just for traders, it's for every soul. From bewilderment to wonder, from belief to plan. Bitcoin's not just money, it's the future's plan. If you're new, don't rush, just educate. Crypto 101, it's never too late. With every step, with every beat, in Bitcoin song, find your seat. You're not late, don't speculate.